Hi, okay, so I'm going to be reading my essay for this week's assignment of reading aloud our first draft. We all know the importance of eating healthy, but a healthful diet is more than just calories, carbohydrates, fats, and the like. The ingredients in our foods are key determinants of our health. Because the food we put in our bodies have lifelong effects, people should care more about the foods they eat and have the opportunities to access more products made with organic, real, and wholesome ingredients instead of overly processed, genetically modified foods created in laboratories. It is rather alarming to learn about what genetically modified foods really are. Abby Goldbach explains it precisely what it means for something to carry the title of being a genetically modified food. GMOs are ingredients whose genetic makeups have been changed by mutating, inserting, or deleting genes. Genes are naturally inserted into the organisms we eat and can only be created in laboratories. This is not something that the Earth's ingredients were intended to do and can pose a lot of potential health risks for human consumers and their environments. Holistic nutritionist Melissa Diane Smith, accurately dubbing foods containing GMOs as frankenfoods, explains that scientists have used animals to see how genetically modified foods can potentially affect human bodies. Smith notes, animal research indicates serious health risks from eating genetically modified foods, including infertility, accelerated aging, organ damage, and cancer. Veterinarians and farmers have reported dramatic improvements in pet and livestock health, especially in reproductive and gastrointestinal issues when animals were switched to non-GMO feed. Jeffrey Smith of the Institute for Responsible Technology and a leading expert on the topic of GMOs elaborates further on why GMOs are so unhealthy and harmful by referencing human studies of how genetically modified food can leave behind material and side effects, possibly causing long-term problems. GMOs contain ingredients that have been intensely altered, cut, and pasted. They are unnatural, so it makes sense that our body would react in an unnatural way. Smith adds, genes inserted into GM soy, for example, can transform into the DNA of bacteria living inside of us, while that toxic insecticide produced by GM corn was found in the blood of pregnant women and their unborn fetuses. In many ways, food really is medicine, so it makes sense that the American Academy of Environmental Medicine urges doctors to prescribe non-GMO diets for all patients, as noted by Smith, who explains that there are startling potential correlations between disease and GMOs. Numerous health problems increased after GMOs were introduced in 1996. The percentage of Americans with 3 or more chronic illnesses jumped from 7% to 13% in just 9 years. Smith adds, food allergies skyrocketed, and disorders such as autism, reproductive disorders, digestive problems, and others are on the rise. This makes a lot of sense when you look back at how Melissa Diane Smith explained that the reproductive and gastrointestinal problems animals who were fed a GMO diet experience. One's health can often be explained by their diets. However, J. Smith does acknowledge that the correlation between GMOs and disease is not necessarily causation. But when you take a collective account of all this information, J. Smith reveals that it is better to be safe than sorry, stating, doctor groups tell us not to wait before we start protecting ourselves and especially our children who are most at risk. Like previously stated, food really can be seen as medicine. And Kate Repko can agree with that statement. Repko, who in the last few years made the life-altering decision to change the way she eats, not just to lose weight, but to be healthier inside and out, explains, I am trying very hard to look at food as medicine these days. I have the opportunity to medicate myself 3 times a day. I ask myself, how is what I am planning on putting in my body going to benefit my body? We have all heard the saying, you are what you eat, but there really is more honesty than cliche in that statement, which is why education about the foods that we eat really matters. Unfortunately, the United States is notoriously shady about conforming consumers about what is actually in the foods we eat and feed the people we love. Repko explains, I wish people knew that the big food manufacturers' only interest is in making money and a profit. GMOs are so frequently made because they can be cheaper and easier to produce in mass quantities. The huge companies that produce the foods that most Americans eat do not care about feeding our bodies. They care about feeding off of our wallets. I do not believe for one second that the FDA is overseeing GMO food safety for the benefit of we the people, says Repco. I am positive that Monsanto and other biotech companies have paid off the people who are supposed to be protecting us. There is a long history of this happening in the United States and elsewhere around the world. Jeffrey Smith agrees, explaining that regarding GMOs, government oversight is dangerously lax. Our government does not closely mandate the foods we find on grocery store shelves and does not take research about GMOs into consideration before letting supermarkets sell products to us. Most of the health and environmental risks of GMOs are ignored by the government's superficial regulations and safety assessments, explains Smith. He adds, the reason for this tragedy is largely political. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration does not require a single safety study, does not mandate labeling of GMOs, and allows companies to put their GM food on the market without even notifying the agency. Smith believes that the FDA is so nonchalant about GMOs because they refuse to acknowledge real scientific data, stating their justification was the claim that they had no information showing that GMOs were substantially different. But this was a lie. Secret agency memos made public by a lawsuit show that the overwhelming consensus, even among the FDA's own scientists, was that GMOs can create unpredictable, hard-to-detect side effects. This is one of the largest problems with GMOs, which leads me to question the government. If these ingredients are so inherently unharmful in their eyes, why are they so secretive and reluctant about letting consumers know about what is in the food we eat? There are no current laws about mandating labeling on consumer goods, and this is a serious problem. Foods that have been modified should be labeled. People have the right to make choices about what they want to eat. If they want organic, real food, they should have that option. Knowledge is power, and you cannot make informed decisions if you are not given the correct information, says Repco. The government has proved itself to be an unreliable source about the ingredients in our food, and while we do need to continue urging the government to make changes, we could not depend on them to educate us, which is why we need to take it upon ourselves to learn more. It is so critical for people, especially the youngest in our generation, to learn about the foods not found in nature can really affect our bodies. Kate Repco urges people to care about making the change to eating foods produced with healthier and natural organic ingredients. Thankfully, companies and restaurants nationwide have listened to consumers like Repco and have worked towards making foods with organic and non-GMOs more attainable for all, specifically Chipotle Mexican Grill. Julie Pinelli, general manager of one of Chipotle's locations in Berkeley, California, explains it simply. As a company whose tagline is Food with Integrity, I believe and support Chipotle's vision to change the way people think and eat fast food. Earlier this year, Chipotle Mexican Grill became the first national restaurant to disclose the presence of GMOs in their foods, and this past summer, Chipotle made the decision to use only non-GMO ingredients. Whether you order bowls, burritos, tacos, or salad, none of the foods you eat at Chipotle contain anything genetically modified, even our corn salsas and tortillas. Pinelli adds, we do not need GMO ingredients to make our foods delicious. There are alternatives that Chipotle uses every day in all of our restaurants. Chipotle believes that companies and corporations have a responsibility to feed customers with both knowledge and wholesome foods for themselves and their kids. Pinelli wishes that Chipotle and more understanding of GMOs in general existed when her now grown children were young, stating, if my children were still young, I would seek out better and healthier options for them to eat, such as food with non-GMOs, now that I have more knowledge about them. Chipotle has done a great job and has proved itself to be an example of how parents can feed their children without fear of dangerous ingredients. As a company, we are completely transparent to our customers regarding our ingredients so that they can make informed decisions, says Pinelli, adding, I believe that all restaurants should provide this kind of information to their customers. However, Chipotle can be too expensive for some wallets, and eating organically with non-GMO ingredients in general does have a stigma of being very costly. This does not necessarily have to be true if consumers take a little extra time to see what grocery stores in their neighborhoods have to offer. I recently visited Whole Foods, Lucky, and Safeway markets whose locations are less than 5 miles away from each other. A gallon of Whole Foods brand milk is actually 50 cents less than Safeway's organic milk. Whole Foods organic and GMO-free frozen fruits and vegetables are either the same price or cheaper than Lucky's inorganic and genetically modified frozen produce. Whole Foods processed corn products like tortillas and chips contain non-GMO corn for nearly the same price as tortillas at Safeway or Lucky. There are many other examples like this, which is why it is important not to be afraid of going into stores like Whole Foods to seek healthier and non-GMO options for you and your family. Living without GMOs does not have to break the bank, says Repco, who offers tips on how you can make better choices at the grocery store. When I buy prepared foods, it really is important to look at labels, says Repco. It may take a little extra time to look at labeling, but it's worth it. I'd like as much food as possible that enters my body to be alive and real, explains Repco. Melissa Diane Smith also adds, as consumers, we can protect the future of our food. If enough people simply stop buying products made with GMOs, manufacturers will feel the financial pressure to abandon GM ingredients. Human consumers made GMOs as popular as they are today, and consumers can have a reverse effect. It is true that sound nutrition is more than just the information on nutritional facts labels, and this is especially true because of genetically modified ingredients. We only have one body for the rest of our whole lives, and we need to nourish it the best that we can while using and utilizing knowledge about why it really matters to feed ourselves. What we feed ourselves. The world of genetically modified ingredients has the potential to make our bodies very sick, but only if we let it. You and the people deserve better than genetically modified foods, and most importantly, you deserve to know why understanding about them really matters.